What's up? We got The Flash, Season 4, Episode 2, Mixed Signal. So this episode starts off with Barry dancing and doing some Barry dancing to Frank Sinatra music. Barry dancing to a Frank Sinatra song. So Barry, then we see Barry and he speeds in to catch his morning coffee and his pancake, and then we see him speeding through all of the shows that he's missed. He's like, oh no, Jon Snow died, and oh yeah, he's back to life. Oh, Game of Thrones. You used to be good, just like The Flash, until you got ruined by lazy writing. Yeah, you got rushed. I feel like The Flash got rushed. We'll get to that rushness soon enough. But I feel like The Flash got rushed. Anyway, so then we see this guy and he's basically walking through Alfred Felicity's apartment from Arrow, or Felicity's apartment. I don't know why they're doing this. Felicity, as we see, Felicity still lives there, so I'm guessing in Central City there's an exact same apartment that looks exactly like all from Felicity's from Arrow. I'm kind of confused about that. So yeah, but then the guy just gets thrusted up and down the elevator until he eventually dies, with the words Kilgore being into the elevator, with an old lady screaming at the guy's death. So Barry comes in and Cisco's now replaced. Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't replaced Julian. Basically, yeah, they're gonna replace Barry, but not Julian. So Barry was about to be replaced until he came back, but Julian isn't. I'm guessing Julian went back to London, so Julian being replaced is exceptional, but yeah. We still miss you, Julian. We still miss Tom Felton. Please bring him back. I know that Tom Felton said that he would love to come back, because obviously this was the show that made everyone love or hate his character. I'm a mutual fan of Julian. I didn't like him, but then I liked him. And I was sad when now we know that he's not going to be in the season anymore because of the writers only having him be on the show for one contract. But Grant Gustin is allowed for this show for a 9-seasonal contract. Okay, you prefer your main character over the real star of this show, Tom Felton. Just kidding, but Tom Felton is the real star of this show. Actually, I think Tom Cavanaugh is the real star of this show. Yeah, Tom Cavanaugh is the real star of this show. So Barry basically, Cisco reveals Barry his new super suit, which we saw last season. In the last episode. But this would have been better if this was actually revealed here, if Barry actually saw the suit for the first time in this episode, instead of the random knowing it was there in the last one. That was so random. How did he know it was there? That was so random how Barry comes out of the Speed Force, talks in gibberish, and when Iris is in danger, he snaps out of that and randomly knows Cisco has the suit for him. That doesn't make any sense. This scene where Cisco reveals the suit for the second time would have been the perfect idea. What Barry should have taken the OG suit that he wore in last season and have Cisco and wear this suit in this episode for the first time instead of the random, Barry just knows where that is and we don't get an explanation for how he knows where that is. He just does. So Cisco basically reveals that he has a manual. So Barry and Iris are having relationship issues because Caitlin's like, hey, when she and Ronnie started going from co-workers to dating, they basically went to couples counseling. But that's when a breach opens and Caitlin gets scared. She almost gets turned into Killer Frog, but she has to keep telling herself to not change, and then she's like, but then it's revealed to be just Gypsy. It would perfect be Harry, but not. It's Gypsy. Gypsy just randomly shows up, and he's like, hey, and she's like, sorry guys, sorry, sorry, and he's like, hey, she was killed you guys, and she's like, yeah, yeah, she wanted to kill them. Wow, Gypsy, pretty dark. Gypsy is pretty dark. So yes. So Gypsy that's pretty dark. So yeah, so Barry's Iris decided to go to couples counseling because they're not on the same page anymore since Barry came out of Speed Force. And yeah, so they're basically like, so he's like, Barry, you've dealt with a lot of trauma. And he's like, yeah, Eddie, Ronnie, Iris' mom, HR, Laurel, Snart. First I thought she said Savitar, which I thought would be very funny if she said Savitar, but no, she said Snart. They never actually had a public funeral for him, because since they can bring the actor back at any point, even though they mention that he's dead, they can just bring the actor back as the pre-timeline version before his death. Yeah, there's a lot of death in this show. Yeah, and yeah. Yeah. So then, yeah, it's kind of funny how they mention Laurel. You had to really mention Laurel. We were really getting over her death show and then Flash show, but then you had to mention her back, and you had to make us remember how much we didn't like other writers basically disregarding the best character. We still like Earth 2 Laurel, but yeah, the whole we were done with her story. It's just like, nah, you guys the Arrow writers just didn't want to write a better conclusion. I thought the better conclusion for Laurel is take the job that she had in season 4, but then leave Team Arrow off screen so she doesn't have to be killed. But I write better storylines than the Arrow show. I write better storylines because I'm not a writer, but I think the whole Laurel should just left the show, but then came back in one episode for one minor appearance. Would have been a better ending than, yeah, the way she was killed off, and Arrow fans just stopped watching the show until season 5 basically redeemed the fans with Prometheus as the villain. But anyway, back to this show. Back to this show. So yeah, so they discover that Tim Kwan is basically, so we have the guy from Ant Farm as the villain, and what is his name? I kind of forget. His name is Ramsey Deacon in this show. Zoltan Grundy. Zoltan Grundy is the main villain from Ant Farm. He's the main villain here. He's not the main villain in Ant Farm, but he's the main villain in this episode, and he has many abilities. So, yeah, he's basically the main villain in Arrow, the main villain in this show, and basically his whole deal is that he wants revenge on his former co-workers for taking his app project and taking him out of the credit. So he wants to kill them because they basically stole his life research. So he killed the first guy, tries to kill the second guy, but it fails. Barry's able to stop a gun from hitting Joe because no one hurts my boy Joe West. No one. If you hurt Joe West, I quit the show. If you hurt Joe West, I quit the show. Just kidding. I would never quit the show. Not the Arrowverse. I would quit the Flash if they ever did something to Joe. If Jesse L. Martin left, that's fine. But if they ever kill, I know Jesse L. Martin's leaving in the current season because he's off on another show. But if they actually kills him off, I will not watch it. I will not even have to deal with season 8. Season 8, not season 9, season 8, because I'll already be done by the show. So anyway, back to the actual storyline. They decide to go and fight the bad guy, and they basically save the girl. And the Tim guy tries to say, "Hey, Sheila," I think that's her name. "Hey, Sheila, Ramsey Zoltan Grundy is trying to kill us." And she's like, "No, he isn't." And he's like, "Yup, yes, I am." And basically pumps her up with too much insulin now because she's diabetic. And if you pump up two diabetics with too much insulin, it'll kill them. So they decide to, so he tries to kill. So he decides to kill her. But they're able to inject a sedative into her that saves her life. So Barry and Kid Flash, the Flash and Kid Flash, decide to stop him, but he's able to hack Barry's suit because Cisco put tech in it. Yes, Cisco decided to put his own voice in the suit because it's Cisco, and he basically put too much tech in the suit that Ramsey Deacon's able to control. He even put a raft in the suit so Cisco can. He's like, he runs on water. So he even put an Iron Man propulsion blast in the suit where he uses to defeat Wally. Bye, Wally. Wally's not dead, but he blasts Wally with the Iron Man propulsion blast and defeats Wally. So yeah, but Barry's able to defeat the lightning. Iris is like, "Hey, Barry, the only way to deactivate the suit is to throw lightning at yourself." And she's like, "Are you crazy, Iris?" I'm just glad Iris isn't the bitch that she was in the last episode. She's fine in this episode, but last episode, she was completely annoying. So she has to throw. So they're able to inject Ramsey Deacon with the serum that they created, and it removes all the. And his face turns into code because Kilgore, and he gets defeated and throws into Iron Heights. And he's like, "Hey," and Barry's like, "Hey, you were in Silicon Valley before you were in Silicon Valley. How were you hit with the particle accelerator explosion?" And he's like, how did you get your powers? And he's like, "You are gonna be so surprised when you find out." And guess what? He wasn't the only one. So that means seasonal goal. Last season it was to save Iris. This season is to stop these bus mess. Seasonal goal, so then we see the villains of the Thinker and his wife, and she's like, "Hey, the Flash and his team fell you right where they want him," and he's like, "What do we do?" And he's like, "Now we find the others." So that was episode 2, Mixed Signals, and it was okay. Iris didn't come off as annoying as last episode. Gypsy and Cisco finally got that date because it was 111 day, basically the Earth 19 version of Valentine's Day, where you spend one soul plus one soul equals one soul on Earth 19, and that was basically Gypsy's whole arc in the entire episode. Whole thing in the entire episode said she just wanted to spend 111 day with Cisco, and she did. She didn't do anything. She didn't help Barry. Why did they even need her? Well, I like Gypsy, but she didn't serve anything to the show. They could just had her and Cisco's thing happen off screen. Like it happens with every love interest on this show that gets an arc. Wally and Jesse's last season love arc was off screen. Why couldn't the 111 day be off screen and Cisco just jump in Anyway, that's it for this video, and I'll see you next time for more of The Flash. season 4 of The Flash.